Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you for being here today. We are going to talk about one of the most damaging and heavy of human emotions, and that is shame. You might be aware of some ways that shame is affecting you in your life on your spiritual journey, or maybe you're not even really aware of the ways in which shame is really affecting you and how you show up in the world in your life. My name is Derrick Ivey. I am a board certified clinical hypnotherapist, researcher, and intuitive. Let's dig into this topic because today we're going to go into what shame is, some ways that you may or may not be aware of shame's presence and influence on your life, and most importantly, how to begin shifting this in a skillful way and healing it so you can love your life more. So, shame is a very, very painful emotion. And it's probably, like I said, one of the most painful of human emotions. It's a often what underlies anxiety and depression. And if we think about the actual energy of shame, it is often this very heavy energy. It's a very dense energy. It feels like defeating, deflating. And you might just reflect what shame is like for you. What does shame feel like in your body? Are you aware of that? Is that something that you've actually already explored on your healing journey, or is this something that is kind of new territory? But just become aware of that. How does this emotion of shame feel in your body? And what type of stories attached to that energy of shame? Oftentimes, it's the same shame that all of these different stories like to attach themselves to. So we all have shame to a certain extent. It's part of the human experience. Some people have more shame than others, and some people have so much shame that it actually gets in the way of them navigating life. It feels too dense or too heavy to navigate through. Being in that vibration of shame, it's a very low vibrating emotion. So it can keep us from aligning with our highest and greatest good and what we were put on this planet to do. And it really has a way of infiltrating into every part of life. So if you have shame and it's unconsciously operating, it's going to be more and more difficult to even really pinpoint what's going on, maybe. So many of the ways that we get stuck in life is rooted in shame. And as we work on this shame, we open a lot of different windows and doors in our journey, in our life path, because a lot of times as a hypnotherapist, I will have people come in for an appointment or do an appointment online with me. And they come for a totally different, seemingly different purpose, like maybe this thing isn't working good in their life or this or that, what have you. But then it turns out shame is the culprit. And this is a really deep topic too. So just be gentle with yourself, just be loving with yourself as we talk about this because it can really bring a lot up, right? So it's not the easiest to talk about, but it is very important to get to the bottom of. And if you really get this, you'll be so much better off for it. You will be so much more authentic in yourself and what you do in the world. You will feel so much more aligned with your goals because shame can really affect a lot of things, and we don't even know that that's what's doing it. So if you have a deep seated core belief that you are inadequate, that you are not good enough, that you're broken, that you are flawed, and that nothing can be done to fix it, that's shame. This shame separates you from your highest self. It separates you from the whole of existence. And we are all one. We are not separate, but shame tells us a lot of lies. So shame tells us we are separate. Shame can manifest as taking things very, very personally. People are going to do what people are going to do, and that's for certain, right? But when you equate that to make it mean something about you when someone else does something to you, or maybe not even to you, just around you, and you make it mean something about you, and you make it mean something about your value and your worth as a human being, you feel like you're invisible, you feel like you don't matter, that's shame. You feel unappreciated, like no one really sees you and appreciates you for the things that you do. That's shame, right? Shame can manifest as you being a doormat, people walking all over you, um, allowing yourself to be disrespected because you don't feel that you're worth more than that. Shame also tells us that we have to work harder than everyone else to get the same results. When we see around us other people doing things and we think like, well, it's so easy for that person. Why do I have to work harder than them to get the same results? That's shame. When you worry about what other people think all the time, That's shame. And oftentimes, shame puts you in a position where you worry about what everyone else is thinking, even without evidence that they're even thinking that. So, an example of this is if someone canceled an event, if they say you had plans with someone and like an acquaintance or a friend, and they say, well, let's reschedule that. And then you go on this whole spiral thinking, well, why did they cancel? They must not like me. That's the voice of shame. It makes you feel unworthy of love. And of course, you're worthy of love. We all are. We all are love. We are all one. So anything less than that is the voice of shame. So you can start to see how this could really throw a wrench in your spiritual journey. Like you're trying really, really hard, but then it keeps pulling you back. Another characteristic way that shame can show up in people's lives is just this feeling of being the odd duck, being different than everyone else, feeling overly awkward, like no one understands you or no one fully sees you. Like there's just something different about you in a bad way. That's shame. Another way that shame manifests is not taking responsibility for your actions or yourself and your own well being. If it's hard to decipher your actions from who you are as a person, as an innate being, and you identify your actions with meaning something about you as a human being, then you don't just at that point feel like you made a mistake. You feel like you are the mistake. And that is absolutely shame, right? And the other piece to not taking full responsibility for your own well being, not taking full responsibility for your actions and your own destiny, your own life, is you don't apologize when you're wrong. Because think about that. If you're feeling a lot of shame, it's hard to admit when you're wrong. It's hard to admit when you owe someone an apology because that would be too painful. Because that would be a confirmation that you are wrong as a human being. Because again, you make it about more than just the thing. You make it mean something about you as a being. So, of course, it'll be hard to apologize when there's a lot of shame there. And on the same token, if there's people in your life like that that are not apologizing to you and you feel that you're owed an apology, just be mindful. It's not necessarily that you don't deserve that apology, but that person may be in a state of shame. There's also the polarity of that because all energies, all patterns, there's a polarity effect. On the other side of that, there's two extremes, but they're two sides of a same coin, is that you over apologize, that everything you do, you apologize about. And that is shame also. And you make yourself responsible for everything that goes good, bad, wrong, or indifferent around you. And you feel the need to apologize, over apologize. That is shame because you feel responsible for that because you feel like a flawed human being. Getting defensive, um, or not even trying because you're afraid to fail. You feel like you're failing whether you do something, whether you don't do something. So, are you beginning to really understand how far beyond the effects of this go than just face value? Shame gets into every single part of your life. It changes how you view other people. It's how changes how you view yourself. It changes how you view your capability to do certain things in life. So shame is something that starts in the body mind, right? And the body mind is our being. It's our physical body, it's our energetic bodies, and it starts there, and then it metastasizes into every part of life. Shame can even make us act out in very angry ways. That's a shame defense because it's a painful emotion, and our anger we think is going to protect us. And that is a subconscious process. And shame calls our basic sense of goodness into question. We're all good. We're all beautiful beings. But shame says, are you sure? Everyone else is beautiful, but you're not. Trauma, abuse, humiliation, all of these things contribute to this overall sense of being defective, of being wrong. Do you know where shame really originates as a human species? originated as a protective emotion, as all of these emotions usually are. The reason that we're equipped with these emotions is to preserve our life and to best survive. So, shame originally was an emotion that would come up, if you think back to tribal times or primal times like the caveman days. If we were ostracized or kicked out of a group, well, what happens is we're not going to survive very long outside of the group. If we don't attach to another group, then we're probably going to perish because as human beings, we're very social beings. We really need each other. We aren't meant to be self sustaining. We are meant to be all links in a chain that make up a greater whole, but we're meant to be in groups, right? So, as children, when we experience rejection, we try to make sense of that in our small children's brains. And we take it inward, don't we? We make it mean something about us. That we are responsible for upsetting people. If our mom or our dad is upset, well, it must be my fault. How many times do does this happen constantly? We take it inward that we are the responsible party for upsetting others. And the reason for this is that it gives, as children, it gives us a semblance of control. And it's overwhelmingly very repressive, but think about how that gives us control. Because if it's true that it was our fault, that we were the cause of upsetting someone, that gives us the tiny bit of hope that maybe we can alleviate this pain, or maybe there's something in our power, in our control, that is going to help with making that not happen again, right? So we see our parents and early caregivers, they're our everything. They're our survival. Without them, we don't survive. So we don't want to make them wrong. They're all we know. So in our brains, they must be good, right? Because they're everything we know. And I remember, this is one of those things that for years I thought that I grew up in, that I had such a happy childhood because that was the story that was being fed to me by my parents. Because, of course, that's what they wanted me to believe, right? Then I'm in my 20s, I start going to therapy and I start really digging into the depths of my psyche. And I realized, well, there was many ways where I really didn't have a happy childhood. I had a very traumatic complexly traumatic childhood. Rejection is one of the most painful human emotions. And think about a time in your own life that you were rejected. How much did that sting? How much did that hurt? It's because in tribal times, if you didn't obey those norms of the group, you were rejected. So exclusion feels literally like death because it feels like you are dying of this shame and humiliation. And that banishment is equated in our brains to an increased likelihood of dying. So by this point, you should be have a pretty good idea of whether or not shame is affecting you in life. Because maybe now you're able to see the more subtle ways that shame is really influencing you. So it's going to be all about healing that inner child inside of you. And I'll tell you how to begin soothing the shame. I'd like for you to do a visualization with this sometime and count yourself down from like 10 to 1 or something. Just focus on your breathing until you feel a shift in consciousness. And then what I'd like for you to do is bring in that inner child. And you need to be there for that inner child, for yourself as a child. And knowing what you know now in life, having the life experiences that you've had up to this point in your life, how would you reassure this child that they are going to survive this, that they are safe, that they will get through this, that this is not going to last forever? What words would you say to them? What energy would you convey to them to help them feel comfortable and safe? How will you let them know that you are there for them? How does that feel? What's coming up? What else is coming up that you're seeing, sensing, or feeling? So, thinking about the bioenergetics of shame, the bioenergetics is the actual energetic imprint that's in our energy field and in our physical body. So when you're in that emotion of shame, yeah, it feels heavy, but I encourage you to tune in and really get intimate with the subtlety of how that shame manifests in the body. Some people feel it as a pit feeling in their stomach. Some people feel it as a tightness in their neck and shoulders or in their chest. And I don't know where it'll be for you, but whatever the cause of our shame, we have to understand that our bodies also have a physical component of that shame and respond in very specific ways to this injury. Trauma is an injury. These bioenergetic patterns form, these responses begin happening automatically. So, how are we going to actually shift through that? When does shame and humiliation come up in your everyday life? That's your best teacher to where you need to start. And once you get an idea of where this shame is coming up in your own life, really notice the content and the corrosive nature of this shame, the energy itself, and also the stories that are attaching to that. So, how does shame come up in your body? Is it a hot feeling where you feel really, really overly activated? Is it a sad feeling? Where in your body are you feeling this? Altered states of numbness. It can almost feel like getting punched or getting kicked or or jolted in some way. But really, I invite you to open yourself to more of an awareness around identifying when and where in your life the shame is getting triggered. And what's important about this is bringing a quality of curiosity in. Instead of turning that in on ourselves, bringing that quality of curiosity in and being willing to look at that shame for what it actually is, seeing things as they actually are, and curiously wondering I wonder where this came from. I wonder what happened earlier in my life that made me really latch onto these fundamental beliefs and take them as truth. Whose voice was that? Was it my mom? Was it my dad? Was it a teacher? Was it my older sibling? I don't know. But whose voice is this? Where did I learn this? Where did I learn that this was the truth about me or about life? So it can give us an awareness of this, that it isn't who you are, it's what you were taught. And you have a choice to become more intentional about how you respond to that when shame does come up. Will you get caught up in the energy of shame, or will you take a step back and let that energy fully process? What would happen if you stopped criticizing yourself? What it would happen if you stopped talking down to yourself or about yourself, or even just tried to do that? What would shift? And notice how often there's that temptation to take that shame as absolute truth. And the more that we learn how to observe, the more we realize that the thoughts that come into our brain are not always an absolutely truth. Absolutely not. Um, More often than not, you can't believe everything you think. Those thoughts are very heavily embedded programs. So, what's truly important and gives us the way out of this shame is something that happens specifically in our energy field. Um, when shame is activated, it's kind of like this. this contraction, like looking down, like, I don't want to make eye contact, that type of thing, right? So, do you see how bioenergetically there's a physical response to that shame? And I want you to just feel what the body wants to feel, do what the body wants to do, but bring this sense of opening to that and just notice. Instead of getting pulled in, just notice and bring so much love and compassion to that hurting inner child. Can you feel love and caring and compassion for this little child inside? And we carry all of this little inner child and inner adolescent shame in our body. And when we allow ourselves to really feel it and really bring that curiosity to it, and we're willing to feel temporarily worse on the road to feeling better, that's when we can break the cycles. So, if you were to really do all of this work to the deepest levels, you would have a phenomenal shift in your life and how your life plays out, how your life manifests. So, consider getting help from someone to really help you with this. I'm someone who can help you with that. Hypnotherapists, licensed therapists, uh, mental health professionals, those are all people that can help you to shift that shame. And if you work with me, we can explore in guided hypnotherapy sessions and work with that inner child and work on really getting rid of all that junk that keeps you stuck. And it's literally like pulling a poison out of your body. You are going to feel so much lighter without that big load of shame. So, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for your presence, your attention. And I hope this video is helpful. Feel free to like the video, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll talk soon. Have a great day.